Hi, everyone, and today I'm going to visit the topic of amoral or immoral INFPs. It's something that I've been thinking about for the past couple of weeks because someone put together a discussion point of someone they know who is an INFP who's been misbehaving, and that got me started on thinking about what does an amoral INFP look like. Enter into this Mongolian mindset saying that Jeff Epstein is an INFP, which is incorrect. Let's not bother with what their system is doing versus what actual MBTI is. But it was another access point around which to see what an amoral INFP actually would look like. And then I've had some interaction with others as well who provided some helpful thoughts and advice. So thank you, everyone who contributed to some of the thinking that I'm gonna put forth here. So anyway, I've known suspected INFPs that are stoic, not necessarily, I would say, kind or good people outright, but they are trying to do good in their own way. That makes them interesting. I have not been able to isolate an INFP that exhibits these dark traits. And in part, that's just because I haven't really thought about or known what to look for. It's complicated, I think, because, well, INFPs aren't that common, but also because introverted feeling is a moral compass. That's what it's been nicknamed by some. And to take someone with a moral compass and then say, okay, now we're going to take them and have them act in amoral or immoral ways, that's kind of contradiction to their nature. So there's a couple different ways I think it's possible. And two are likely and one seems challenging. The first is simply the overwhelmed INFP, somebody who's gotten to a point where there's something of responsibility that they need to be doing. They're having a meltdown and become irresponsible and avoidant. So this is an INFP that is not necessarily doing wrong directly, but is doing wrong by negligence, by not doing anything. So they're not, they're causing harms by lack of action. And I think that makes a lot of sense, that this sort of thing could happen, that someone who is just, they may have a moral compass and they may know the right thing to do, and they may have the will to do what's right, but they just can't bring themselves to do it. And with that blind SE, whatever else you want to bring into play as an excuse, they just don't get around to it, and so nothing happens. That's the first. The second, this is the one that I find tough to characterize. It would be an INFP that goes counter to their own nature. And by that I mean they see introverted feeling, the moral compass. They have any extroverted intuition possibilities being fed to them. They look at all of these different possibilities on a constant running basis, because that's what INFPs do. They're evaluators. They evaluate all of the possibilities. They know the right thing to do, and then they just throw all of that aside and ignore their nature. Theoretically possible as it is to get ISTJs to stop paying attention to any of their experiential past and just start throwing money around like crazy, doing wild things, jumping out of airplanes, gambling at the casino, and just not paying any attention to personal responsibility. Or taking an ENTJ and saying they're going to just turn their life into a disorganized mess, all clutter, and just stop planning for anything that they've done in the past. Or maybe an ESFJ and saying, all right, no more contact with other people. You're just going to do everything yourself based on what you believe feels right for you. All of this seems in contravention to their nature. It could be an ESFJ saying, right now you're supposed to move just on logic and nothing else. Throw all your feelings out. You're going to behave purely on logic from now on out. It sounds feasible, but acting explicitly in contravention to our nature sometimes would be called a grip or something. I just don't see that being a long-term feasible way for people to move through the world, to ignore their dominant function as if it doesn't exist, or to deny it and act in contravention to it. So that can exist, I think, for a time, but when someone is in that state, it would potentially be difficult to identify their type because they're just they're acting crazy for their type. They're acting in contravention to type. So the third, and I think this is the most likely of the three, is that if someone has experiential references in their SI, child SI, that have told them that the world is a dark and dangerous place, full of betrayal, full of people who are undeserving, who act badly, and you just cannot trust others. That's what your belief is based on your own experiences in the past. Then the sorts of possibilities that your extroverted intuition would throw up would be much darker and more terrifying things. Instead of greeting people with an open hand because you know that that is the best win-win situation for everyone, you would be more selfish and protective because all of the outcomes that you've known in the past have you think in and out of the box and possibilities of potentially equally bad outcomes by trusting or by being kind or generous or fair to others. So that could lead somebody to think they're doing right by their moral compass, by having it corrupted to a point where they are blatantly treating people unfairly or blatantly favoring some over others. Lack of equity, lack of fairness, lack of trust, all of these sorts of qualities would end up working their way into this sort of a corrupted moral compass. So that's one that I do believe, that people would think that that they're doing the correct thing, and in the meantime actually bringing more evil and inequity and unfairness into the world. So that's what I've got. I guess as a final thought, I should quickly mention that INFPs moving in a mature and moral way aren't necessarily these kind, good-hearted, wonderful people that one might expect. It is, to me, simply the correct thing to do, whether or not I benefit immediately from an act of supporting someone else. Supporting things that they're doing is also in my interest because it furthers the things that I would like to see come into the world. If I do things that bring about what stuff that I believe is good in the world, meeting a fist with an open hand is a way to ensure that the next step is going to be a win-win situation no matter what happens next. So there is this enlightened self-interest in being kind. There is this saying that I'll sort of abstract, that the arc for kindness bends long, but it bends true. And eventually the things that you do out there in the world that are kind and help others, even if they are not immediately or recognizably self-serving, they will come back in some way to make the world a better place. and we're all in that world. So it behooves us to make the world a better place. That's what I've got. I had a lot more, but I want to cut this off before really rambling on. If you have some thoughts about this, please don't go into the Reddit style, oh, I knew someone who was immature and selfish and they were such an INFP. I think there's plenty of that around where people don't necessarily know type, but they just assign certain stereotypical qualities to the type they believe that is, whether or not that's cognitively correct or not. Let's not be victims of that stereotyping. But if you do have ideas, I do think that I will revisit this topic again in the future because I'm interested in this concept of what makes an INFP go off the rails and into kind of this selfish, immature, self-serving track while maintaining that FI moral compass and any ideation which seems like it would constantly run counter to that nature. And as a final thought, aside from what I've named, this doesn't have any direct bearing on anyone here in YouTube land. So please don't think that this is just something that's personally interested me to try and consider the theory of what does a dark INFP look like. I don't have any examples. I don't know any examples because probably I haven't known what to look for. So that's all I've got. Thanks again for listening and have a good morning, evening,